The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to the University of Michigan School of Social Work MSW information session. I'm pleased that you're joining me today. My name is Erin Zimmer. I am the Associate Director for Student Services here in the School of Social Work, and I'll be running our session today. Before we get started, we have a lot of information to cover. I wanted to give you a little bit of information on how the session will run. We have an option here on the webinar to be able to ask questions. I'll be covering quite a lot of information. I'm going to take us through the MSW program options. We'll talk all about the admissions and application process and also financial aid. But you are welcome to send us questions. I'll be pausing from time to time and we'll likely answer a lot of the questions toward the end. So if you want to jot them down, we can make sure that we answer them for you. We find that it's helpful for people to see each other's questions, so we will reply to all on them. But if you have a question that you'd like a private response to, you can go ahead and type private in front of it and we'll make sure that only you receive an answer to the question. So you can send them at any time. Just so you know, even if you do not have private in front, we never can see names on them, so there still is some anonymity there. So, all right. We have a lot of info to get to, so I will just jump right in and start covering information regarding the MSW program. We are very thankful that you're joining us and you have an interest in our program. There's a lot of information to learn about our program. We are actually having a curricular change. Some of you who may have been looking at our program in the past may have noticed that our concentration names have changed. We are still focusing in on several of the issues and areas that we have in the past, but we're just changing a little bit the depth at which students are being able to study while they're pursuing their MSW degree. So these are our MSW pathway options. We cover a lot of ground in terms of the different areas of social work that somebody may want to be practicing in. So I'll just take some time going through these now. You can see our first option is community change. So if you're someone interested in doing community organization work, if you're interested in learning how do we mobilize communities for action, how do you do community development work, planning, learning the strengths of a community, you may want to focus in that way. The community change focus is considered a macro type of social work, but obviously you have a lot of contact with the community stakeholders in order to really hear what they are invested in, and make sure that the change is sustainable. We have a focus in global social work practice. So if you're passionate about working with immigrant populations, refugee populations, you may be interested in working here in the US, you may be interested in doing work abroad, but this is really the area that you're passionate about. You could be interested in doing direct service work with these populations or more macro-oriented work, but all of a focus on global issues, you might want to focus in that way. We have an interpersonal practice, an integrated health, mental health, and substance abuse focus. So if you're interested in becoming a clinical social worker, you want to do work around mental health, I would recommend focusing this way. I would say this is probably our most intensive clinical focus. If you see yourself wanting to do therapy, learn how to do counseling, assessment, treatment planning, diagnosis, case management, or referral, that would probably be the right option for you. True mental health work really is integrated. It really takes into account physical health, mental health, and substance use issues. So that's why we've brought those together in our curriculum. We have a management and leadership focus. So you may be somebody who's interested in working within a nonprofit organization and you'd like to administer a program within the nonprofit. Perhaps you're interested in being an executive director of a nonprofit organization. So you're dealing with budgetary issues. You would be dealing with working with a nonprofit board, overseeing services that are being provided in a nonprofit. That would probably be the right option for you. We have students interested in policy and political social work. So you want to assist with policy development or implementation that's really impacting socially and economically disadvantaged populations. It's really important for social workers to be involved in the political process. It's actually mentioned in the Social Work Code of Ethics. So some of our students, maybe our graduates, might be interested in holding political office so that they can really help socially and economically disadvantaged populations, or maybe they're interested in working for those who hold political office. We have a program evaluation applied research focus. So you might be somebody who has a really good skill set in doing program analysis, measuring our programs are effective in the work that they're hoping to do. It's a really important skill set to have, especially for funding issues. Obviously, for providing good service provision, you want to make sure that the programs are making the impact needed, and or you may be very interested in doing applied research, so you're researching social work topics and making sure that you are able to utilize those for direct change with individuals, with communities. That also might be a good option if you are thinking about a PhD in your future. It would allow you to get some additional research experience under your belt, which is what a lot of doctoral programs may be looking for. We have a focus in social work practice with older adults and families from a lifespan perspective. So you're passionate about gerontology, you really want to work with or on behalf of older adults and also helping their families navigate these processes. With this focus, you could, again, like global, you could be interested in working directly with the client population. It may be the case that you're interested in more macro areas, so maybe you'd like to run an assisted living facility or run programs focused on the aging population. And lastly, we have welfare of children and families. So if you're interested and passionate about helping families with issues of child abuse, neglect, abandonment, foster care, adoption, then this would be the right fit for you. Again, you could work directly with this population. You might be somebody that wants to be right on the ground with them, or you might be somebody that's interested in more macro-oriented work, raising awareness about issues, trying to change policy around these issues, or running nonprofit organizations that are providing services to children and families. So those are our pathways. When you apply to our program, we're going to ask you to tell us that your areas of interest. It's not a formal declaration of what you'll major in our program, but for planning purposes, we'll want to have a sense of what you're interested in. I'm going to talk more about admissions later. Your admissions are not based upon the pathway selections that you make, but obviously when you apply to the program, you want to make a selection that makes good sense for the concentrations that you're hoping to focus in and learning that you want to do in relation to your career goals. Okay. So we have several different curriculum schedules. This is definitely an area that has grown a lot here at the University of Michigan. So we do have an advanced standing option. So if a student has a BSW degree and they have a 3.5 with the last 60 to 75 semester hours of coursework, and they can finish their degree, their MSW, within 6 years of finishing their BSW, then advanced standing is a possibility. Students would start in September and graduate the following August. So it is 3 semesters straight through in a 45 credit hour program. We have our 16-month option. This is actually our most popular option. I should say advanced standing is a 12-month option. So 16-month is the fastest option for someone who does not have a BSW degree. Our 16-month students would begin in September and they would graduate the following December. So one semester past what an advanced standing student would do. All students except advanced standing have 60 credit hours to complete. Advanced standing has 45. So our 16-month students are beginning in the program and taking courses, and then they, in their second semester, begin field placement. And they do stay enrolled fully in the summer with both classes and field placement in the summer. We have a 20-month option, and this looks more like a traditional undergraduate schedule where students would enroll in the fall and winter semesters, so September through April. They would take a summer break and come back and do 2 more semesters, so they would do another September through April. So I always like to just clarify with students here, the 16 and the 20-month option in advanced standing actually all manage the same amount of credits per semester. Usually it's about 15 credits that you're averaging. That includes a combination of both classes and field credits. So I would say with the 20-month option, maybe you're a student that really is hoping to have a summer break. That works if we have students in our program who maybe have young children that will be out of school, or if there's just another reason why you would like to have a summer break. We have extra term option. So what this would do is for an advanced standing student, you'd graduate in 4 semesters instead of 3. For another student who just needs the 60 credits, they would go a 5th term instead of a 4-term program. What it allows you to do is actually reduce your credits down to about 12 from 15. So 1 less class a term. Sometimes that really makes the program a little bit more manageable. So we can definitely work with students if they need to do that. You would talk with us early on and we would start making plans for you for how you'd complete the program. We have a part-time option as well, and these new curricular schedules are really helpful. In the past, students were mostly always full-time students, so this adds some flexibility on. If you are a student that needs to go through our program a little bit slower, we can meet with you. A lot of the planning that we do is individual planning with students to see what's going to make it work for their lifestyle. The thing to keep in mind with social work education that's somewhat unique to other graduate programs is that you have field work. I'll talk more about that, but about a quarter of your credits while you're in a program is applied field work. You're really learning how to do social work. So when you're planning, you need to really keep in mind that you have to have time and space in your schedule to do that. So in several terms, what that would mean is you would need to have, I would say, minimally 2 days of the week during the day that you would need to be able to go and do field work. So if you're trying to work, you need some flexibility so that you can be in an internship site learning on site how to do social work in your area. So we can talk about that. We work with students at what point they're going to start field, but it usually goes about 3 terms, 3 semesters to complete your 912 hours of practice. Advanced standing students do 684. Okay, so but it's a really important part of the learning. We do have a Master's International Volunteer Program. This program is a good option for somebody who's really interested in Peace Corps. So it allows students to actually come in and complete 2 semesters in our program, and then they would leave and they would do 27 months in the Peace Corps, so full Peace Corps service, and then return and complete either 1 or 2 semesters, depending on if they have a BSW or not. So if you're already thinking about Peace Corps, it's a nice option, way to blend the 2 of them. There's some funding that comes with from the School of Social Work when you return from Peace Corps. Also, Peace Corps offers some resettlement money when you finish your service there as well. So that's a much longer endeavor because you have over 2 years of work abroad in Peace Corps. And then lastly, we have our MicroMasters MSW program. This is a couple of years old. This program, what it allows students to do is do the first semester's worth of coursework online through self-paced learning, and then students would have 45 credit hours remaining that they would complete in residence in Ann Arbor over usually 3 semesters. Sometimes students may space it out and go up to 6 semesters if they're trying to do it a little bit slower. There could be an option also where students only in Ann Arbor for 2 semesters and they finish their last semester outside of the state of Michigan. But it eases a student in. It does mean that a student could be taking classes even the term ahead of when they would start the program in residence. So we could have students enrolled in classes this winter. The classes have to be finished by June 15th of the year that they're going to start in residence. So it does require 3 years of human service or social work related experience for that program. So we typically would have to see someone's resume first, see if they are eligible in terms of the experience requirement, and then we would want those students to pursue application right away so we could get a quick decision to them, and then they can know if they should pursue the online courses. But the online courses are approximately $1,200 to do a full term's worth of courses, along with you do a comprehensive evaluation in the summer before you start. So there's a nice cost savings there. So it's something to think about. So those are different curriculum schedules. There's a lot of options. Again, we work with students on kind of what's going to make the best sense for their lifestyle. All right, so we'll talk about special programs. Let's just see. So with the special scholarship programs, these align with different pathway options. And what they do, they refine your studies. So you have particular courses that you would take. Often they will have you utilize some of your elective credits to get more depth in this particular area of the field of social work. We have particular field sites that we work with when students are in these scholars programs. And then there is some funding that will go toward tuition cost. So I'll just go through these a little bit. We have the Child Welfare Scholarship Program. Again, if you're interested in issues of child abuse, neglect, abandonment, foster care, interested in any level of intervention within those topical areas, you'll want to think about the Child Welfare Scholarship Program. Most all of these scholarship programs will apply to a student either in the 16-month program or advanced standing. You could be a student coming in from the micro master's program as well. Most of them do not follow the 20-month schedule. So you can apply with any curricular schedule, but if you're accepted into these programs, you'll need to make sure you change and follow the curriculum schedule required of these programs. We have the Community-Based Initiative in Detroit. This is a macro-oriented program if you're interested in focusing in community change, interested in learning how to do development work within communities, you're passionate about working in Detroit, you might want to think about that particular option. Students also who have completed Peace Corps may be interested in Coverdell Fellows funding opportunities, and we align that with the Community-Based Initiative in Detroit, so that's something to think about. We have the Detroit Clinical Scholars Program. If you're interested in doing counseling work with racial and ethnic minority youth in Detroit, this program allows for that nice clinical training. Students will do work with Wayne County Community Mental Health when they're in part of this program. A student should really have a passion for working within urban settings when they graduate. That's something the committee looks for as well. Also, talking about the work that you may have done similar to that in previous experiences. Each of these programs will require you to submit an application for them. I'll talk more in detail about financial aid, but you want to make sure that you learn as much as you can about the program so that you can write a really tailored essay so the committees see your deep interest in their particular program. The Geriatric Scholarship Program, again, for somebody interested in working along the aging concentration, wanting to do direct practice work or macro-oriented work around gerontology, focused issues. The Global Activity Scholarship Program aligns with global social work. If you are hoping to have one of your social work internships abroad, then this is the opportunity to do that through the Global Activity Scholarship Program. I would give strong consideration to that particular opportunity. We do have some other opportunities for students to do study abroad, so they're getting academic credit globally. But this is the particular program where students are actually most often getting field experience abroad. And we do have some special studies as well where students are doing some international experience. We have the HRSA Integrated Behavioral Health and Primary Care Training Program. This is a connected program to Detroit Clinical Scholars. Students are also working in Detroit with federally qualified health centers. So if you're interested in doing direct practice work with racial and ethnic minorities. This includes adults, whereas Detroit Clinical is going to focus on youth and adolescents, also working with Wayne County Community Mental Health providers. There are many provider organizations that fall under this program. We have the Integrated Health Scholarship Program. This program, students are doing their internship work primarily with the University of Michigan Hospital. So you're working in that particular setting, and as we have populations experiencing health challenges in a hospital setting, you're helping them help to be responsive to mental health needs that may have come before the physical health issue, or perhaps there's mental health issues that come about because of a you know, difficult diagnosis or health challenge that somebody is experiencing or their family members are experiencing. So that's integrated health. We have the Jewish Communal Leadership Program. If you're a student that's really interested in working within the Jewish community or in Jewish focused organizations, you might want to do this option. What it does is allows you also to integrate some Judaic studies coursework along with your MSW degree. And this one actually does follow the 20-month schedule. It requires 5 terms of enrollment because there is some of that extra coursework in Judaic studies, so it takes a little bit longer. The National Community Scholars Program has students or offers the opportunity for students to do internship work both here in Michigan, often in the Detroit area, and then one of your internships is outside of Michigan, and we work in different communities across the U.S. We have had students in San Francisco, in Chicago, in Mississippi, and some other sites too, but really focused on community participatory work, youth development, and leadership type settings. We have the new Leaders in African-Centered Social Work. If you are a student that really wants to learn how to be culturally competent working with African American population, you may want to focus that way. Again, you could be interested in a combination of social work topics, but you really want to bring that learning in. Your internship when you're in that particular program will be providing service to a majority African American population. And lastly, the Master's International Volunteer Program, I mentioned that one earlier, and that's the one focused in on doing Peace Corps work along with the MSW. Okay. We do offer dual degree programs here at the University of Michigan. So we will have students that are interested in pursuing multiple master's degrees at the same time. It does save on time and money if you do them together because classes will cross count. What you'll want to do is apply to both schools separately, and you let us know on your MSW application if you're planning to pursue that. And then we have advisors that work with students on these plans. They tend to be pretty individualized. No two students really ever do any of our programs the exact same way. But you can see the listing there. So we have students that focus in social work and get an MBA. We have students that are focusing in with the School of Information. We have students that pursue law. Law is the longest dual degree. That one takes 8 semesters of enrollment. It's usually beneficial to start out in the law school. We have public health, so MSW, MPH. That's our most popular dual degree that we see. Majority of the students in that joint program are pursuing the health, behavior, health education focus within public health. But you still do have the opportunity to choose any one of the specialty areas in the other units. Social work and public policy is the second most popular combination that we have. While they're in pursuing these degrees, we have a urban planning focus, and then also students can initiate a dual degree. So if there's another terminal master's program at U of M that you want to couple with your MSW, it's possible to do it. Most common one we've seen in recent years is with the School of Education. So we have students interested in higher education or working within public school systems, so they get a master's in education. So we could talk with you if you have questions about it, but you definitely want to do your homework, checking in with the other unit, seeing what their admissions processes look like, and following through with their timeline, their deadlines, and all the steps you need to take to apply. And then we will work with you on the combination of your degrees. In most cases, students are able to get completed with their 2 degrees in 6 semesters. If you're a student that has a BSW, you might be able to get finished in 5 terms or semesters. Excuse me. So, but we can work with you on that. All right. All right. So field placement, I've been mentioning this here and there as we've been talking today. A quarter of the credit hours while you're in our program are completed through field education. It's very important. An MSW degree is an applied degree where you're learning how to do social work in different sites. So in terms of field placement, we do have an Office of Field Education. Our students will work with that office to set up their internship, their field placement site. We have over 550 field placement sites across Michigan. Most are in Southeast Michigan, which is where Ann Arbor is situated, but there are ones across the nation and some international sites that we're working with as well. Students are very much participating in the process of getting their field placement set up. The Office of Field Instruction will talk with students as they're getting ready to apply for their field placement. Students are sharing information through a resume, through goal statements, to communicate their learning goals and interest and populations of interest. And then the field faculty members will take that information and look at the opportunities that they have, and then students are interviewing at the sites to see. Usually it's one site at a time. Most students only need one interview. That'll end up being their placement site, but it's possible that a student may do more than one interview. The field placement sites do align with the competencies you need to gain according to what pathway you're following or what you're learning. You're supposed to be learning in the field placement depending on what your focus is in the program. All right, so that's just a little bit about field. Again, it's about a quarter of the credits while you're in the program. Okay, so that was a lot of information about the program offerings. I'm going to switch gears and share information now about the MSW application process. The application is now live for the fall 2020 year, so you are welcome to go ahead and apply as soon as possible. We have different deadlines, which sometimes are a little bit confusing. December 1st is our early decision deadline. So for our students who meet that deadline, we will give them a decision by March 1st. And it's the initial decision, which is usually a final decision for most students. Otherwise, March 1st is our priority deadline, and August 1st is always our final deadline. It's beneficial to apply as early as possible. It is a rolling admissions process, so you want to make sure that you're in early consideration. There's more space in the class early on. I'll talk about financial aid in a bit, but there's also more financial aid resources earlier in the process. So you want to make sure that you're in early consideration if possible. I just wanted to make a note there that the final deadline for the MicroMasters, MSW, or the non-baccalaureate program or for international applicants is March 1. Those all require some additional processing or process for students entering, so that's why we have our earlier final deadline for those groups. Okay, so criteria for admission. So students always will ask, what are you looking for in candidates? How does the review happen? So I'm going to take us through each of these sections, but this is all that's looked at. The application review process is very holistic. We're looking at several different factors. We look at personal characteristics of applicants. We will look at letters of recommendation. We look at the supplementary statement that you provide. We look at your human service experience and your academics, and I'm going to talk more about each of these. Okay, so in terms of personal characteristics, we really value diversity. We value having a class that represents a lot of different identities and experiences while we're here. And so in the personal characteristics section, we are noting things about applicants that could include language skills. So if maybe you speak another language besides English, and that means that you're able to provide social work service in more than one language. We look for commitment to social action and advocacy. That would be noted maybe in your resume, or your recommenders may talk about you. We like to have students from different geographic locations. we're situated in the Midwest. We like to have students from all over the U.S. and internationally. So if you come from an area that is less represented in our school, you will note that in your application. We do have students who are career changing, so they bring a knowledge base that's a little bit different, experience base that's different. So we'll note if you've had success in another field. We look for strong commitment to social work values. Obviously, that's very important. Again, that might come through the way you're writing your essay or how recommenders talk about you. We note if you worked as an undergrad student, maybe that meant you had less time for volunteering because you needed to pursue employment opportunities. We look at personal qualifications. When your recommenders complete their information for us, they will rank you in some of these categories: judgment, integrity, adaptability, concern for the need of others, all important things for social workers to have strengths in, so we'll see how you rated there. We have many students that are passionate about social work due to life experiences, so we may learn about that in your application. We like to have students working or focusing across our different pathway areas. So we may know if you're interested in macro work or child welfare, again, working with populations that are less represented within our program, and also a strong interest in multicultural social work. So those are just some examples of personal characteristics that we would note within your application. We do require the 3 letters of recommendation. What we recommend is that you try to provide a recommendation letters from both academic sources and professional sources. So somebody that has supervised human service work or internship or volunteer work. That really answers the question, the 2 questions that we're hoping to answer, which are what kind of student will you be in our program, and ultimately what kind of social worker will you be? How will field placement go while you're in the program? So that's why you want to try to have recommendations from both of those sources. You have to judge who will be able to provide you with strong recommendations. We'll look overall how they ranked you. Did they highly recommend you? We look at those different categories I mentioned earlier to see how strong you rank in those. How long they've known you is helpful. It's not required, but we hope recommenders will write a narrative and add that into the online recommendation form. So it's a pretty simple process. You'll put their name in their email address, and the system then asks them to complete it, and then they can upload their narrative as well. But give your recommenders a fair amount of time. I would say at least a month to get them completed so that you can meet whatever deadline you're shooting for. Your statement's really important. This is where we assess your writing skills. This program is fairly writing intensive. It's also used to assess your fit for the program. It's also used for some scholarship review that we do. So it's a really important part. You want to make sure that you have somebody that you respect review it for content and grammar. We have changed the questions for the fall 2020 group, and if you're in the online application, it will share that. But essentially, there are 3 questions now. We're asking students to, within the 3-page limit, discuss a social problem that you'd like to address, and then talk about the skills and knowledge that you'd like to obtain in the MSW program to support your career objectives. So what are you hoping to focus on? What do you want to learn while you're here? Talk about your personal and intellectual qualifications, past human service experience, and future goals, and how they all relate to furthering social justice. We'd like you to use some examples. And then we have a question that has you look at the core values of the NASW Code of Ethics. And we have you look it over and then talk about a value that you've demonstrated in the past and one that you'd like to develop further while you're completing the program. So it's a fair amount of content to cover, but you really want to make sure that you're succinct and it's a well-written statement. I also recommend students review the School of Social Work's mission on our website and make sure that there's a clear connection between the mission and your goals. Sometimes we do give some mission-based scholarships based on the information that we learn. Experience is important. We want to have a sense that you've had some human service experience, so you know what the field of social work may entail, and also some feedback maybe from recommenders, so we know how you've performed in those experiences. So you want to provide us with a resume, make sure that it really highlights all of your human service experience. Um, I recommend having a section called Human Service Experience where you put it all in that section. Maybe a section called Additional Experience that would include other kinds of tasks or positions that were not social work related, but we still would like to know about them and how you balanced your time. So we look at a variety of experiences. It could be volunteer work, it could be internship or paid human service work. If you've done committee work, if you were in leadership roles, include everything so that we can look through and assess the relevant work. Of course, your educational background is important. We will look at your GPA over the last 60 to 75 credit hours. I mentioned for advanced standing, that has to be 3.5 on that final transcript. We do not have a cutoff GPA overall for admission into our program. So we do have discretion in reviewing the entire application. And if someone didn't meet at the 3.5 for advanced standing, we could review them for the 60 credit hour program as well. So it's one category. We do want to feel confident in your academic abilities, but it's just one indicator or one factor that we're looking at. If a student has enrolled in a graduate coursework, we will look at what their GPA was in that coursework. We admit all majors into our school. You do have to have at least 20 credits of liberal arts coursework across at least 3 different disciplines. So we'll look for that as well. In terms of evaluating your education, recommendation letters from academic sources help boost that. But we also look at any kind of continuing education training or workshops that you may have done as well. So a pretty comprehensive review. Those are all of the pieces that we're evaluating. We look at each application and it's read by 2 reviewers, and then we meet as a committee and make a determination. So very holistic. You'll notice I did not mention a test score. We do not require the GRE for admission into our program, so you don't need to take that. If we have students who did not study in English, or English is not the first language, then they may need to take the TOEFL score, our TOEFL test, and we provide that information on our website as well for our international applicants. All right, so that's the application and admissions process. In terms of financial aid, I know that's a really important part of applying to our program. You can see about 75% of our MSW students receive some form of grant or scholarship aid from the School of Social Work. We have about 430 students each year that enter our program. So it's a lot of students that are receiving funding from the school. When you're doing the application to our program, you'll want to complete the financial aid form, which is part of it, the application. That's how you apply for need and merit-based grants and scholarships from the School of Social Work. So make sure you input all of that information. I discussed the special scholarship programs earlier. Each of those programs will accept applications on 3 different dates. So they'll accept them December 1st, February 1st, and March 1st. You want to apply to the earliest deadline possible. So your application for the program will have to be in along with your application for the special program, and they each require an essay for the programs you're applying to. But try to get those in as soon as you can. Make sure you apply for funding when you apply to the program. Don't wait to be admitted. You want to be an early consideration. It's important if you're going to apply for any need-based grants or scholarships or loans, you'll need to do a FAFSA, free application for federal student aid, and that's usually available in October of most years. If you are a student that was previously had parent information on the FAFSA, you do not need to do that anymore at the graduate level. So it's just your information, which often means greater aid eligibility. But the FAFSA is also how you can apply for federal direct loans and work study, and that supplements any grant or scholarship aid that you may receive from the School of Social Work. And there are also employment opportunities that are called graduate student instructor positions or graduate student staff assistant positions at the University of Michigan. They happen outside of the School of Social Work, but students can go to the careers.umich.edu site and review those. I think it's a good idea in the winter of the year before they want to start looking at those positions. If you are a graduate student instructor, you're helping professors in the classroom and maybe running discussion sections. If you're a graduate student staff assistant, you may be working a U of M department office, helping with programming or different administrative work. Those are great positions because they offer full tuition coverage, health insurance, and a living stipend. So they come with a big funding award. So our students often utilize a combination of these different sources to fund their education. All right. So if you have questions, we will be on. We'll start answering the questions that have come in while I was presenting today. Talk to the Office of Student Services if you have any questions. That's our phone number and our email address and our physical address. We're online Monday through Friday from 9 to 4. So you can always click on that chat with an MSW admissions button and we'll answer your question in real time. We would love to have you come and visit the School of Social Work if you're able to make it to Ann Arbor. We can have you sit in on a social work class, have lunch with a student, tour the school, meet with an admissions financial aid counselor. So you can just fill out the visit SSW form on our website. Also, you want to look at the in your region area. We travel to many locations across the U.S. So perhaps we're coming to your area and you can connect with an admissions counselor and in person we can talk with you and share information about the program. I really appreciate you joining me today. Like I said, we will stay on and answer any questions, but we look forward to hearing from you and seeing your application come through. Thank you.